Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Aspire32. And today's guest is my very close friend, Dr. Abhishek Jahagirdar. And he is not new on Aspire32. His earlier podcast, which is liked by many, in which he spoke about how teaching is different in dentistry in United States dental schools compared to India, where he highlighted what are the things which can be changed in India. And it was very insightful, and I learned a lot from that podcast. He has been very genuine, sharing his experience from his heart and his journey. And today he's back with a very important podcast which many students have asked me from so many days, and it is about finances. When you think of doing DDS in United States after completing your dental education in India. First of all, welcome to Aspire32, Dr. Abhishek. I hope you are doing great.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you for having me again. It's a very warm welcome again. Thank you. And first and foremost, I would want to wish all your viewers a happy 2022 and also happy Makar Sankranti.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad to talk to you on this important topic. And you know it because you have sailed through it. Now you are practicing after your DDS in University of California, San Francisco. And now, since you are into the private practice, I thought you would be the best person to speak on about how one should think about finances, and maybe to get some information about all these loans and how you repay after your education. This is what I'm looking for, and this is what is very, very important for most of the students, and the information is not readily available on in many platforms.
Okay, Suresh. So, to get the point out straight to all the viewers or to all the aspirants, so I would like to say navigating through DDS itself is a Herculean task for dental students from India, because they have very little exposure to the Western style of education. So here, as I've already spoken in my previous podcast, it's not more about numbers or rote learning. Here, it's more about experiences, and they give more emphasis to what you can do hands-on and what you can do to the community. Both are a very important aspect, but I think this part is a bit lacking in India, because we are more worried about numbers. You're getting 94%, 95%. It's all about the percentages in India. So here it's more about that. So once we navigate through this DDS, then comes the bigger question. Now you have an acceptance. That's the dream of everybody who is on this journey. But what next? Now the school sends you an astronomical amount in the email saying you have to pay a six-figure amount, nothing less than a six-figure, and that too in dollars. So especially for me, it was a rude shock when, I wouldn't say a rude shock in terms of, because I knew the tuition when you're applying. So first thing, what you need to make sure is every school has a different tuition in the United States. Back in India, there is something called CET, Comet K, and all of that. So they have a fee regulatory commission. So if you are going through a government quota, you only need to pay so much, irrespective of whichever school you go to. But here in the United States, there is no single fee structure. So I would like to emphasize that as the first important point. So each and every school, based on their infrastructure, based on their learning, based on their program, each and every school has a different fee structure. So that's the most important thing. So you need to make a list of all the schools that you apply, how many years is the program, and also the tuition and the living. So the first thing a DDS aspirant should do is to list the schools in the order of priority, and also list the tuition, because now you have an acceptance. But if you're not able to pay the tuition, it means nothing. All your effort goes down the drain.
Yeah, that's very important information to think before we even apply for the NBDE or INBD eligibility exam. Of course, that exam also cost almost 4 to 5 lakh rupees if you are traveling and all those stay expenses.
Yep.
But Abhishek, I want to know roughly how much is actually the total fee, including the expenses and whatever expenses are, because there are multiple figures. Somebody says it is 1 crore, somebody says it is 1.5, somebody says it is 2. So since you have gone through it, and if you're comfortable, I'm sure there's those things vary also. And I understand that it's a very huge amount, and majority of them take loan for to get into dental school, and we'll be talking more on that. But how much, what is the upper limit according to you? How much one should save? Consider that this much will be definitely your overall expenses if you think of doing a DDS in United States after doing dentistry in India.
Yes, Suresh, that's a very important question. So first and foremost, what I would like to say is that, there is no upper limit and there is no lower limit. Because as I told you, that each and every school, the extent of the program is different. So for DDS, the minimum is 2 years. Okay. So you cannot finish or get a DDS in less than 2 years. But there are many schools like University of Michigan, in which the program is 2.5 years. So in terms of months, that would be around 28 or 30 months. Then UPenn, wherein again, the program is 28 months, that is 2.5 years. And then you have some schools like Columbia, the Ivy League in New York. So there, the program is 3 years. Okay. And then that is the first distinction. So you cannot have an upper limit or a lower limit. But the average, I would see, when you consider most of these schools which offer the IDP programs, would be around $220,000 to $250,000. So this would be the average. So some schools are lesser, some schools are more. But when you average it out among all the dental schools in the United States, it would come somewhere around $220,000 to $250,000. And now with the rupee fluctuating with dollar, you can just make the math, and then it would be around maybe 1.7, maybe 1.5 to 1.75 crores based on how much is the rupee now? Maybe 74, 75?
75, 76, yes.
Yeah. So if you do the math, so I would say consider around 220 to 250,000 US dollars. So that is 250,000 US dollars.
And does this include the other expenses like stay, insurance?
So if you break it down, so this, I would say, includes everything. So it would be your tuition that you need to pay to the school. Then this would also include your living costs. So again, living cost is very subjective because some people would like to live in university housing. Some people with families, they may not prefer university housing because they may want their kids to go to a good schools. And here in the United States, which school your kid goes to depends on which area you live. It's not like back in India, wherein, I live somewhere, I can send my, kid to any school. So that is a major factor as to where you live, because your kids go to that particular school in that particular school district. So again, your living costs depend on that. But generally, most of the IDPs stands for international, dentist students. So IDPs, they generally, live in student housing because they are subsidized, and you want to, limit your cost to whatever little you can, especially as a student. Yeah. And this also includes your laptop that you need as a part of your school program, your health insurance, your food, your transportation, and also your itty-bitty stuff like your groceries, your internet, your phone, whatnot, inclusive of whatever you have, you want to do on weekends. People have a budget for what they want to do on weekends here too. So yeah, all that around, maybe 250K should be good. Yeah, around $250,000. Yes.
Okay, so that now we roughly know how much one should expect, and I guess not everybody has that much amount of money, and someone will definitely, and majority of, I think, will take a loan, and that is something which is very confusing for many people. How exactly this loan is, you get the loan? Do you get it after your admission? Do you get it before your admission? Do you have to be in India to get the loan, or you have to be in US to get the loan? How one approaches this whole loan thing? Because we all can clear the exam, but then we think about the application of this loan and all. If you can tell us, give some idea, then it will help students to prepare better before even thinking about the exam process.
Yeah. So Suresh, when it comes to the financial part for DDS, so I would say this is the most important part, because clearing all your exams, clearing your interviews is in your hand. But generally what it happens with finance, when you apply for a loan, I think I would say 95% of applicants need financial aid. That is, what we call as loan. So that's not in our hands. That's with the, financial company or the financial institution that is approving the loan. So the most important thing is there are many ways how you can fund your education here for the DDS. First and most important thing is, the most easiest way to do it is if you have all of your 1.75 crores or 1.5 crores as liquid cash in your bank account. That's the most ideal situation. But then I would hardly assume anybody having that kind of liquid cash in their accounts. And even if you have them, I don't know if you would want to be spending it on education. So that's the first thing. Second option would be, maybe you have some disposable property back in India, and you feel that, at this point of time, you may not need it, you may need it later. So you can use that as a collateral and try to get a loan from back in India. So I'm talking about options of raising money back in India first, then I will go to options of raising money in the United States. So as I already told you, first thing would be liquid cash. Second thing would be to try to get an education loan back in India. But the hurdles that I had to overcome let me tell the viewers, I didn't take any education loan back in India because the rate of interest was too high. Even now, I think, what's the current rate of interest for an education loan in India, Suresh?
Maybe 10, 11, it must be that much.
Yeah. So the sad part is you can get a car loan for maybe 3 or 4%. You can get a home loan for 2 or 3%, but you cannot get an education loan for that interest rate. Education loan, I don't know why the system is like that in India, that you have to pay 11% rate of interest for an education loan, wherein it's easy to buy a car at 4 to 5%. So that's the paradox. Hopefully things change and people give more, subsidize the interest rates on education loans so that more people can afford education and thereby, realize their dreams. So that, and then most of the banks in India, they require collateral. So that is another challenge. So you need to show something, either some property or land or cash or whatever as a collateral to the amount you're planning to borrow from them. So if it's 1.5 crores or if it's 1.75 crores, you need to show something tangible as a tangible asset to the bank, right? So that is another challenge. Then most of the banks, they're not very forthcoming when they get to know that, okay, your son or daughter is going to United States and that's where they're funding. They have some limitations because the Indian rupee has now to be converted into dollars. So they have some foreign exchange limitations and all of that going on. So that is the third challenge. And especially these state-run banks like State Bank of India or Bank of Baroda, the way they operate, they are not very customer friendly too. Maybe the image has changed right now. Please don't quote me. I don't want SBI running behind me now that they are not very customer friendly, but that's the general notion. So, but then, but then it's not that, so I would say you have a better chance with private banks than with state-run banks. That was the situation when I was looking for, or I considered the option of taking a loan back home. But then when I saw the rate of interest being consistently high, I dropped the idea. So these are the options with, how to raise your tuition from back in India. First would be, to summarize, your liquid money or liquid cash in your account. Second would be, I've seen some people pledge FDs, whatever you can. Those are all considered liquid cash. FDs, your LIC options, then whatnot. Next would be to raise a loan from India. I would say avoid that unless you cannot, do it in United States. Okay, because the only reason would be that you will be borrowing in dollars and you will be paying it back in dollars. So there is no fluctuation of your dollar and rupee going on there. Yep. So that was the first part of how you could, raise some money. The second part would be options in the United States. So I think most of them would be more interested in knowing about this option. So the first and the easiest and the smoothest option would be to get a loan in the United States from any bank. But here comes the big question. Because you're not a citizen or a permanent resident of this country, so most of our international students who come here on a student visa or what is known as an F1 visa. So if you are on a student visa, then because you don't know how long you're going to stay in this country, the banks now need someone to co-sign that loan for you. So you need a permanent resident of this country, also known as somebody who has a green card. So somebody who has a green card is known as a permanent resident of this country, or a citizen of the United States to co-sign the loan for you. So this is the most common option. So I come to the United States, I have any of my relatives or any of my friends or any well-wishers or any family who are here. And if they are a permanent resident with a green card, or if they are citizens in the United States, so please start talking to them and see if they are interested in being a co-signer to your loan. Okay. And the rate of interest depends on the credit history of your co-signer. Now, many people want to know what is credit history. I'm introducing a new term here. So what is credit history? So before Suresh asks me what is credit history, let me try to tell you what's credit history. So in the United States, everything depends on your spending habits. So normally in this country, everything runs on a credit card. Unlike in India, which is a cash-based economy, in India right now, it's seeing a lot of transformation with everybody using electronic modes of money transfer like Paytm, UPI, Bharat Pay, and all of that. But that was not the case when I came to, or when I left India. It was like 2018. So that was when Paytm was just right around the corner. It was just introduced. But here in the United States, everything runs on credit. Everything runs on your credit card. So nobody uses cash. So what they do is when you have a credit card, whatever monthly expense you make on the credit card, and once you pay them back at the end of the month, the credit company gives you a score, and that score goes on building up. And once you have a good history of repaying back whatever you buy on your credit card or whatever expenses on your credit card, then you have a number, and that's called a credit history. So a credit history is as important in this country as anything else. But the first thing I would advise any student who comes to United States is try to get a credit card and start building your credit history. That is the most important thing in this country, because anything you buy henceforth, be it a car loan, be it a student loan, be it refinancing your student loan, that is another topic altogether. So all of these things depend on your credit history. So same way, now just let's consider a hypothetical situation. So Suresh decides to do DDS. He comes to the United States now, and I decide to co-sign Suresh's loan. Then now the bank will check my credit history, because if Suresh were to default, then they would come after me to see that I would be responsible for the loan. So that way, they want to check my credit history and my spending habits and my repaying habits. Okay, God forbid that situation never comes, because we know each other way too well to be in that situation. But still, I would, just trying to give your viewers a better understanding of why credit history is important, and the loan that they borrow depends on the credit history of your co-signer. It can be anybody.
In fact, Abhishek, now in India also, this is definitely gaining a lot of importance. We all have credit score, and the home loan and many of things are linked, but it is still in an initial stage. The way you said that the electronic payment, it was beginning and now it is full-fledged. But now the credit history, yes, there is there, but credit card still not in too much. People still get addicted to credit card spending. But this point is definitely something important which you have mentioned. So I want to know that if suppose, how out of how much is it out of 900 score in India? I think it is out of 900. In US, it is against what number?
So I mean, I'm not, I cannot quote exactly on the numbers, but it would be around anywhere around 800 to 825. I think is like one of the top scores anybody can achieve with their credit history.
Okay.
But on an average, to get a decent loan at a decent rate of interest, if your cosigner has a credit history of around 720s or 750s, anything from 750 to 800 or anything above 800 is considered as like a top-notch credit score. And I think you will be getting the best deal in the market.
But how much is the interest rate currently, or maybe 1 year before, for in general on average, what is the interest rate in the United States?
Okay. So when it comes to the interest rate, so there are different banks. Different banks have different interest rates. So some of them that I see, which most commonly is used by international students, they with a cosigner would be some banks like Citizens Bank. Then there's something called Sally Mae, SALLIMAE. Then, Wells Fargo, which is a very famous financial institution. Then Citibank. So these are some of the banks which generally lend out to international dentist students or international dentist programs. And the rate of interest generally is around maybe 5%, 5 to 6%, or sometimes if you have a very good credit score, you might even get it like for 4%. I've seen people even getting a loan for 4%. Yep. So everything depends on the credit score of your, cosigner. But again, for your viewers, I haven't borrowed money from a bank with a cosigner because due to unfortunate, circumstances, I mean, I want to get this, but I don't want to be very, paranoid, or I don't want you guys to get very paranoid, but then always have plan B, plan C, plan D to plan Z when it comes to your finances. Because there are many people who will promise you when you enter the country that, no, we will take care of it. We will do this, we will do that. But then when it really comes to signing on the contract, on the dotted line, people will back out. Trust me, I've had a personal experience. So I would want to warn every aspirant to please have multiple plans, as I already mentioned, because don't always, have all your eggs in one basket and just be dependent on that one person to be co-signing your loan. You never.
Why do you think that people back off from signing at the last moment? What can be the reason?
So, Suresh, there can be many reasons. I mean, best known to them. But I would say, sometimes what happens, maybe their financial situation changes. And once, I co-sign the loan for anybody here, that loan also starts appearing on my credit history.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now if I need to, take another loan, maybe in the future, then this loan, takes away bulk of whatever I'm eligible for. Because till, for the person that I have co-signed the loan, he starts making his payments and, this loan then goes on to his name. But till he starts making his payments, what if I need some other loan, right? What if, and based on my earning, I'm only eligible for this much amount of loan. And now I already have a huge amount just because I've co-signed somebody else, because I'm still responsible for it till the other person takes my name off the loan, right? So that could be one reason. The second reason could be, very simple. People make tall promises, but they don't really mean it. So most commonly it's that, they don't want to look bad when somebody asks you. They think that, okay, let me think, there's still a long way to go. We don't know if this guy is going to get a acceptance. We don't know if this guy is going to come to the US. So people just come and saying, yeah, don't worry. I look after it. Don't worry. It's all cool. We are there to take care of you and all of that. But when you really land here, then you realize the hard reality that, you're in a foreign country, you've left your family, no support, and now there's no financial support too.
Yeah, I think the people, we also don't know the actual thought process or the situation of the other person, expecting that we can always hope, but unless we are in their shoes, it is difficult to, make that decision.
Yeah.
So what does this mean that someone who doesn't have a co-signer can't think of doing DDS in United States?
No, that's not the way it should be thought, because I was in the same situation, Suresh, that I was just describing you. So it is from my personal experience, because, for my first year, I had the tuition from back in India. So I didn't have to worry about all of this. So I landed here and I had, few of my family and friends, they're like, oh no, don't worry, we'll take care of it and all of that. And I was pretty chilled about it because, their family, their friends, if they have something to tell, they let me know ahead of time so that I'll have enough time to arrange. But then came the cruel twist, as it always happens in our Abbas Mastan movies, So, and now I think it was December of, so it was December of my first year, and I already have my, tuition paid out till next June. But then I have to pay the next tuition in July. So luckily, what happened was I had 4 or 5 months to figure it out. And then in United States, you don't have to pay the whole amount upfront. So it depends on school to school. My school offered me the option of paying the tuition quarterly. So quarterly in the sense you break down the whole tuition into 4 installments kind of a thing. So you pay the money every quarter. So that was one option provided by my school. So then what happened? Now my cosigner, the so-called cosigner, backed out. And now I don't know what to do. I'm panicking. So, and now my only option was to either get money from India again for my second year of tuition or look for some options in the United States. So back in 2018 in United States, there were hardly any financial institutions which would give you a loan without a cosigner. Now, let me tell you what it means to give you a loan without a cosigner, because now there is no collateral or there is no guarantee, right? Because there's no cosigner. And you are not pledging anything like your land,
Property,
your home, or anything, because all of that is back in India. You don't have anything in the United States. You're a student. So now with what guarantee will any financial institution lend you 75 or 80 lakhs without any guarantee? So that was the situation I was in. But luckily, God's grace, there was one institution called Prodigy. That was, I think, the pioneer or one of the first institutions in the United States. Sorry, it was lending in the United States, but it's not a US-based lending institution. It's a UK-based lending institution. But they do lend tuition to people in the United States. But then it goes on a case-to-case basis again. There is no guarantee that, because they have certain, yes, because there are certain restrictions. It depends on which state you're studying, which school you're studying, and what is the tuition you require. So it goes on a state-to-state basis. So I have had many friends, when they asked me, how did you manage? I told them I took it from Prodigy. So they immediately contacted Prodigy Finance Institution. But then Prodigy said they cannot lend them because they have not recognized their school or they do not operate in their state, right? Because in United States, each state has its own constitution, not unlike in India, wherein there's a single constitution. So each state has its own rules. So even though there are some federal rules which govern all the states, but each state has its own rules and they are paramount. So not every bank can, work like, how they work back in India. So you have to check with the bank as to if your school is recognized with them, if your program is recognized with them, and if they are operating in the state you reside in. Okay, so that's the first important thing I would like to tell. So second would be that once you decide that, and I was only mentioning about Prodigy, but right now there are a few more institutions. So I would like you to do more research. If you're in my situation wherein you want to do DDS in the United States and you don't have a cosigner, then please look into further institutions like there's another called Empower. Okay, it's not EM, it's just M. M as in Manhattan, Empower, POWER. It's something called as Empower Financing. But again, not every institution will finance 100% of your tuition. Okay, so the caveat is Prodigy doesn't do 100% of your tuition. They only do 80% of your tuition. So if you want to borrow like 80 lakhs, then they will only finance 80% of it. Okay, so the rest 20%, you have to show that you have liquid amount in your account.
Yes. That means if you have 1 crore is the fee, you still have to have 20 lakh in your account. Of course, you got the loan, your education is over. Everybody doesn't know how many years you have to pay this loan. Is it, they say that, okay, you can pay it for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. What is the duration which you can get to repay the loan?
Okay. So